your government doesn't take this problem seriously, well, we have many things to do.
No, the government takes, in fact. Can I sit? Oh, do it. Okay. The government definitely takes it. The job of the government is at two levels. Sorry. One is creating legislation for that. Government basically, how does government protect? One is legislation. We have robust laws. The contract law itself is basically gives you all the power. That's why, in fact, I have been really, putting lots of impetus on very robust confidentiality clauses and NDA. So if your contract is close, very strong, then of course your interests are taken care of. The biggest problem, and it's not only in India, anywhere in the world. In fact, we do international transaction, and that problem you'll find in the US as well. That somebody has misused your technology. Your technology is, of course, if it is in a very concrete form, for example, somebody has used the technology in manufacture of some product, you can still somehow prove that in the court of law. But sometimes it is, for example, we were advising a client. In fact, they have developed in India, very big. They have developed surgical robots. They do surgeries with the robots. They had a senior person who left that company and joined a competitor, even though the employment contract said that he could not join anybody else. Now, under Indian law, you cannot really put that kind of restriction. We have one provision, we call it Section 27 of Contract Act. So you cannot put any restriction on anybody else's employment. It is very difficult. So courts do not really agree. They say, we cannot really snatch livelihood from somebody. What if you have been harassing this person and he left, and that is the only, his skill set is because he worked in your company and in this sector. So in that case, the only thing is, if you can prove in the court that, he had our confidential information, he has stolen that confidential information and misusing it probably for our competitor or otherwise. Now, how to prove it is a difficult, very, very difficult proposition. That is the problem, and that problem is not only here. That problem is everywhere in the world. Now, in that case, what we did in that case, because he was using a computer, I asked the promoter of the company to conduct a forensic on that computer. And he had actually transferred several business, commercial related information to his personal email ID. So we got something to take to the court. We could prove that he has misused that. We got injunction against him, and there was one criminal case filed against him. But the biggest problem, so it's not about the lack of intent from the government. Of course, government can only make laws. The enforcement agencies can enforce, but for that you have to really prove that the other person actually has infringed. That infringement, the onus of proving the infringement is on the affected party, isn't it? So when I allege that you have used my patented technology, I should be able to prove in the court of law that as a matter of fact you have used that. Suppose that is not proven. That's not proved in the court of law, that you have actually taken my technology or misused it. There is no consequence.
So that relates to this topic, but let's say we establish a company, joint venture with an Indian company.
Sure.
And we make let's say $1 million revenue in India. And how will be the invoicing split of the two companies based on shares or?
Well, if you have invested in that Indian company and formed a joint venture company, that's what you're saying. So there's one Indian company, you have invested in the shares of that company. That's what you're saying. Are you saying that?
So our company and one India company, we make a company together.
Yeah, you make a company together. Yeah. So that's why, in fact, your company will have shares in that Indian joint venture. That's what you're saying.
Of course.
Yes. So in that case, you don't split invoices. Invoices belong to that joint venture company. You see, we need to understand every company is a person. You don't split the person. Okay, we call it juridical person. So the invoices will belong to that company only. Of course, there are ways how to really distribute the proceeds. There are ways to to provide for that. For example, suppose you are providing technology, you can have a separate agreement with that joint venture company for technological transfer or licensing, and you can get revenue in the form of royalty. Generally, that royalty is certain percentage of your sales. So that is one way. Now, suppose after that also you also want to benefit from your shareholding in that company. So your engagement with that company is multi-level. One is you transfer the technology, for that you get the royalty. Then second is you also invested money in that company, in the shares. That you get, if that company makes profit, then you get dividends. And you get dividends in the proportion of your shareholding. Yeah.
So when we get the net profit and we are planning to, let's say, to send the money back to Korea.
Yeah.
So it depends on how we do the agreement with the JV company.
No, see, so dividend basically you don't need for dividend unless you really want to specifically write in the joint
Not for
venture.
the dividends, I mean net profit.
But profit, when you distribute profit, that is dividend.
Yeah. Okay.
Dividend actually is, by definition, dividend is distributable profit.
Okay.
So when you distribute profit, that is dividend. There's a one coinage for this. So it is profit only. Okay. So you distribute dividend. And dividend, of course, under company law, and not only in India, unless you have written in the contract, where you say that, if we make profit, that much percentage of that has to be distributed in the form of dividend.
Yeah. Okay.
So in that case, what you do is you have that provision in the joint venture agreement, and then incorporate those provisions of joint venture agreement in the articles of association of that joint venture company. Because the company is governed by its constitution, articles, not by an extraneous document like joint venture agreement. Yes.
Okay. Just last thing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Please. No, I'm enjoying it here.
Yeah. So if we plan to do the financial consolidation with Korea HQ with the new foreign company,
Yeah.
would you know like the requirements that we need, like how many shares, how many employees, who should?
Cross-border mergers cannot happen. So you're talking about actually amalgamation of two companies. So basically Indian joint venture company becoming part of your company here. Are you talking about that?
Yeah.
No, so cross-border mergers.
Financially,
No, financial, basically it depends more upon the financial standards prevalent in Korea rather than India. So if the Korean financial standards, if they say that most of the cases, in fact, because all of us, we follow international financial standards, IFRS. Even Indian standards, they follow 90%, they are actually almost mirror image. So if your shareholding in the Indian joint venture company is above a certain percentage, so in different countries it is different. In Japan, for example, it is 25%. So if 25%, then you can, in your accounts in Korea, you can really consolidate those accounts. Yeah.
then transfer cash assets to Korea,
Yeah.
is it expensive tax or?
No, there used to be one tax. It was called dividend distribution tax earlier. I have been a great, objector to that. Basically, whenever I get time, I write for financial newspapers in India, Financial Express, Hindustan Times, Mint, etc. So there used to be, till 3 years back, there used to be a tax called dividend distribution tax. So whenever dividend was distributed, the company which was giving that tax was not in the hands of the dividend receiver. For example, not in the hands of Korean company. That was in the hands of the company which was giving dividend. But ultimately, it is a cost on you as well as a shareholder. So what was done later, and it was a great reform, that dividend distribution tax has been done away with completely. So now you will get the entire dividend, and of course, that dividend will be income in your hands in Korea, and then Korean income tax will be applicable. Yeah. Yeah.
추가로 궁금하신 사항 있으신가요? 없으신가요?
Right answer for this, but like typically when you see a joint venture between a Korean firm and an Indian firm, what's the percentage split? Is it always typically 50-50 that they split the new joint venture?
Well, it depends upon, sometimes joint venture can be 1% to 100%,
Right.
Sometimes, it depends upon the objective of your coming together. Many times what happens is, and that's what the Japanese companies, they do. Japanese companies, most of the times, their investment is very strategic. For example, the trading companies. They want to enter into some kind of venture with, for example, Indian companies, manufacturing companies, to secure their, raw material purchase. For example, suppose they have to purchase. So what they do is they will invest around, say, 15-20%, so that they have the skin in the game. And they also will have a separate agreement that you are going to sell your entire supplies to me in Japan. So it depends upon your objective. If the objective of the Korean company, for example, is to eventually acquire that Indian company, then you start with, sometimes it's stages. You don't want to really put in a large amount of money at the first go. You invest, say, 25% with certain rights. So you can actually, in the shareholders agreement or joint venture agreement, you can have special rights, governance rights. For example, appointing your directors on the board, having say in the decision-making process. Eventually, when you gain confidence, so in that agreement only you write that after 3 years, suppose I should have a right to buy your shares at then market value. So it all depends upon your objectives, what you want to achieve from that joint venture.